$169.
Okay, better than before.
So tight.
We are back in the garage. So I have my Celica here, and you can see that it's on these quick jacks. Shout out to Yasmin for giving me these quick jacks. Once it's on the stands, once it's in the lock position, and it's on the higher one, you can actually just disconnect because there's no pressure for the hydraulics, and I just have this rolling on a little dolly. But yeah, look at this. So much room for activities. I had this on ramps and I pressure washed it a couple weeks ago. And yeah, you got a lot of room and access. So what are we working on today? Well, there's a lot of play in this wheel. And you know, I had originally tightened the preload on it and it was better. And then it started becoming notchy. So I'm pretty sure I destroyed the bearing for over tightening it. And it probably doesn't have any grease in it. A lot of play in the box, and you don't see that pitman arm move. Look at that ratio. Big dead spot. So I was thinking to myself, okay, we'll just rebuild the steering box. What's the big deal? After utilizing these quick jacks, I was moving my tire back and forth, checking for play. Check that out. You see that? Bunch of play in this pitman arm. And the steering box is notchy now. Probably needs to be repacked with the grease. Luckily, I have a spare. And it's like, wow, there's very little play. Look, if I wobble this, you can see that pitman arm. Okay, so besides the steering box, I should have all the links here. I ordered these parts from Rock Auto a couple months ago, just haven't had time to get to it. Tie rod, outer tie rod, inner tie rod, another inner tie rod and pin, front lower ball joint, exhaust gaskets because I got a leak, pitman arm, sway bar linkage, another front ball joint, brakes. We'll change all the lines, upper and lower. I even have the brake line that's on the rear end that goes to the drums. I always like to start early on these projects because you later realize you're missing something or need another part. And we didn't order an idler arm, so we're gonna replace ball joint, outer tie rod, inner tie rod. I'm gonna find an idler arm locally, hopefully. We're gonna clean up and replace the steering box with this one. We're gonna replace these crusty looking brake lines. Alright, obviously can't continue until we find an idler arm. So we have everything on this table except an idler arm, which looks like this.
$169.
With most parts being unavailable, and looking at different threads on how to make something and create a hybrid idler arm. With my only day off today, I've decided just to tear it all apart and figure it out later. Luckily, they're hub centric. Well, what do you know? We're going to be changing these things anyway. So I have my tuning fork here. There we go. Been struggling on this. So I got this side off. As you can see, this side is giving me some difficulty just because there's a lot of play in that joint. So I'm probably just gonna unbolt it from the actual bracket. And here we are. So we got driver's side tie rod, a replacement. We'll keep the sleeve. Passenger side, we got this arm for the steering box. We'll replace that. That's why I kept that arm on the one on the car. And then can't really find a source for this. We're gonna have to make a hybrid arm or try to rebuild this joint, but it's not looking good. Blasted this nut off. It's a 24. This should slide off. Not a lot of wear there. And then this has little teeth, and these dig into the actual bushing. This bushing's not even that bad. And this should be the same length. Well, luckily, we're recording things, so I'm gonna say this out loud. The zip tie is on the passenger side. So if I have any question, I can just reference this video. Pretty much on a standstill with this, just because I don't have this part. We'll come back to this. And we have ball joints, which I kind of don't want to change, because if I change ball joints, I might as well put RCAs. And if I might as well put RCAs, I might as well take off the struts and make coilovers. So we're not going to change the ball joints, because if I change the ball joints, we're going to end up putting coilovers and lowering this car, which wouldn't be a bad thing, but we'll focus on that later. So for now, we're just going to pull off the steering box, drop it, take it out. So I got these side by side. So the main difference is this one's real notchy, and now I'm just noticing the coupler is loose. This was contributing to the string play. Compared to this one is so smooth, ultra smooth. This thing is solid. There's like no play. A part of our experimentation though is I'm gonna try to rebuild this, and I know if you grind off this cap, the whole thing will fall out. So I'm actually curious to see how this one's set up. So I called the local parts store, and they're like, oh yeah, we have one in stock. I'm like, okay, does it cross-reference any of these in the manual, or does... So I gave him a part number. I'm like, is it similar to these part numbers? He's like, I can't give out part numbers. I'm like, okay, how much? He's like, $60. I said, okay, I'll be right there. I head over there. They said, you know, we have 2 in stock, but I couldn't find them. So we're back to square one. So now what I'm doing is I got some diesel, and I'm just like, look at this freaking grime, dude. Literally, like, depending on how my brain works, we might be able to refurbish the old idler arm. A couple hours later, this thing still looks dirty. We're doing some Frankenstein stuff here. We're taking apart the pitman arm or idler arm. And essentially, I thought these would have been the same. This is the pitman arm. It has an actual ball. Okay, so essentially this goes here. This goes on top with a spring, which forces it down. And then this is the cap. So you compress this, bend this back over, and weld that ring back on. But on this one, there's no ball. So essentially, I think there was just maybe like a copper bushing in here. So maybe I'll just machine something, this inner diameter and the outer diameter of this. And essentially there was no spring. This one on top, and that capped it. And then I grinded this off. I think there was just a bushing and it just disintegrated.
Do it yourself.
I found the bushing. I machined it down on my neighbor's lathe and I cut it, cleaned up the face. This is 22 millimeters outer diameter, 14 millimeters inner diameter, about 20 mil wide. So this slides in and this slides into here. All right, so we get the bushing. Okay, so hammered it into place. Feels really good actually. I should probably grease this also so I can make a big mess. And then this cap should go in. Actually, that snapped right in. I'm just gonna make a mess. Okay, so sometimes I get really excited, and when I get really excited, I don't record anything. So, man. All right, so I got this thing stacked in here. All right, well, I dipped my tungsten and I kept going, but I mean, that's not gonna hold any grease. The grease was just boiling out, contaminating. $200. Who has $200 for this? And the bushing's still good. All right, here's a little closer look. I mean, better than before. All right, we got a funnel here. We're just gonna put some gear lube, 80W90. I don't know what the manual calls for, but this thing needs some oil. A couple days later, I happened to get the day off today. And right now, I just took the boot. I'm not gonna use this new pitman arm. I'm gonna change this pitman arm when I need to because I don't want to unalign the one on the steering box. So I just put a boot on here and the little retainer, added some grease, and then painted it. You can see my terrible welds. And then painted these and put the boots back on. And these, also with the boots back on, and I just packed them with a little more grease. So I was gonna assemble the tie rod sleeve, but I remembered these eventually rust and they're hard to get off. So we're just gonna add some anti-seize. Now that we assembled these tie rods that have anti-seize all over them, we can get to our steering box. Like I said, so I'm gonna leave this pitman arm, and I might have overfilled it because we're spewing out here off the vent, but we gotta get this in. Here's my angle. You can see how dirty that is. So I'm gonna scrape the frame rail a bit. Just a little bit of WD-40 and some steel wool, and you know, scrape off all the junk on there. So there's 2 on the shaft, and then there's 3 of them in the frame rail, which I'll recess for now, or like stick out a little just to help align it. Okay, shove the bolts through the frame rail. I got this snugged up to the frame rail, just need to get the studs to the coupler. We'll just hit that up real quick. Threw some anti-seize on here. I hope this makes sense. Okay. At this point, not sure if this matters inner or outer. This way. Tie rod's maxed all the way in. Like to check for smooth operation or operation. Yeah. Before centering the wheel, I'm just gonna snug up all of these castle nuts and put our cotter pin in them. Okay, I'm already at this point and I got these brake lines on, so I might as well replace them. Why else would you replace them? Because they're messed up. Thought of doing this is always worse than actually doing it. But okay, so just have the reservoir off and I've cracked the brake lines. So just crack it open and hopefully there's no air in these. If I leak out all the front, the rear still has fluid and I won't get air in the master. Gravity bled them. There's still a good amount of pressure in the pedal, so I think we're good. Oh. $180. Okay, so one turn, lock, half. Here's my half. 1.5. 1/2. Okay. See what I did there? So, took too long to center the wheel. That felt like that took forever, but what we're gonna do, shout out again to Yesvin for this lift. Thank you, sir. I'm putting it to good use. So it's locked right now. Lift it up off the locks. Flip that down. Okay, well, it's sliding on the cardboard. The thing is, this isn't gonna drop all the way because the air cylinders are messed up. We can fix it by putting weight in the car. Whatever. Obviously, we'll get it settled down, right? Because the front end hasn't realized there's weight on there yet. And I know it's not aligned because I could hear the tires. I could hear the front end grabbing these tiles. So we're gonna lay these down just to decrease any friction we might have. Could be our turntable. Anyways, you can obviously tell this is way toe out. It's literally turning. Very low friction with these with the anti-seize. So we're gonna get these ballpark. Okay. I'm gonna lay this there. And from top to top, we are toe in. 63 in front, 64 in the back. So easy to make an adjustment here.
Well, steering wheel is cocked to the left a little. Brakes feel good. It doesn't feel mushy. It is definitely better than before. Steering input feels a lot better, a lot sharper, a lot less slop. And yeah, we'll see how long this fix lasts. Like, comment, subscribe. Steering feels tight.